I keep a blue bowl on my kitchen counter. It was my grandmother Vera's, chipped on one side. The kind of chip that happens not from being dropped, but from being used. From decades of wooden spoon handles knocking against the rim while somebody stirred something that mattered. The glaze is the color of early morning sky in September. Before the sun decides what it's going to do like, and subscribe the channel, and tell in comments from where you are watching this video. She gave it to me on a Tuesday in March, 2 years before she died. Not a birthday, not a holiday, just a Tuesday, and she handed it to me wrapped in a dish towel that smelled like her house, like cedar and old paper and something I still can't name. And she said, "You'll know what to do with it." I put it on my counter when I got home. I've kept pencils in it ever since, mechanical pencils mostly, the 0.5mm kind. I go through about 4 a year. I'm a title examiner. I work for a small firm in Clarksville, Tennessee. What that means, for the people who've never needed one, I trace the legal ownership of property backward through time. I sit with courthouse records and deed books and old microfiche, and I find the thread that connects a piece of land to every person who has ever owned it, all the way back to the original government patent. I find the gaps. I find the mistakes. I find the places where the paper trail goes quiet, and I figure out why. People pay me to be careful, to notice what's missing, to read what the documents are actually saying, not what someone wants them to say. That skill has been useful in ways I never expected. My name is Renata. I'm 34 years old. I have a son named Marcus who is 7. I have a best friend named Deb who teaches 7th grade science and says things like, "That's not grief, that's just their face," when I'm trying to be charitable about people who don't deserve it. I have a '09 Civic with a dent on the passenger door from when my mother-in-law opened it too hard against a parking meter in 2019 and never said sorry. I kept the car because it runs. I kept the dent because I stopped pretending things didn't happen. I want to tell you about my grandmother Vera, about what she left behind, about the people who decided they already knew what that was worth, and what happened when they found out they were wrong. But first, I want to tell you about a Saturday in October. For 6 years, I drove to Vera's house every Saturday morning. It was 41 minutes each way, door to door, on a good day with no construction. I know because I timed it the first time and never bothered to time it again after that. It became part of my body. The way the highway opens up past the exit for Aaron. The way the old water tower appears on the left like a landmark you'd put on a treasure map. I would bring Marcus if he wasn't with his father. I would bring coffee in a thermos because Vera's coffee was always weak. She knew it was weak. She'd say, "I make it like I like it." And I'd say, "That's why I bring my own." And we'd both drink out of mismatched mugs at her kitchen table while the light came in through the yellow curtains she'd had since 1987. I drove those Saturday mornings for 6 years through summer and winter and the especially difficult winter of 2021 when the roads were sheets of ice and Marcus had a fever and I called ahead and she said, "Stay home." I mean it. I stayed home that one time. I called her twice that day instead. Vera was 81 when she got the diagnosis. Congestive heart failure. Stage C. Her doctor was a young man named Dr. Pratt, who wore boat shoes even in January. And she liked him precisely because he didn't talk to her like she was already gone. He gave her information and let her decide what to do with it. She decided to stay in her house. She decided she wanted her garden to look decent when the time came. She decided she wanted to revise her will. I know this because she told me. She told me over weak coffee in February, the steam rising between us, and she said, "I've asked Halverson to come by next week. I have some things to sort out." I asked if she wanted me there. She said, "Not for that part, but I want you to know it's happening." I nodded. I didn't ask what she was changing. It wasn't my business to ask. That is the thing about being the quiet one. You stop asking. You show up. You let the person in front of you tell you what they need. You don't stand in front of them with your hands out. My mother never understood this. My mother, Diane, has been standing in front of people with her hands out since before I can remember. My mother, Diane, is 61 years old and has lived her entire life in a state of mild emergency. Not the real kind. The kind that requires audience. She calls her emergencies by other names. She calls them injustices. She calls them attacks. She calls them what people do to her. And she has a particular way of telling a story where she's Always at the center and always blameless and always somehow owed something. By whoever is in earshot, she is not stupid. That's important to say. Stupid would be easier. Diane is perceptive and articulate, and when she likes you, she is genuinely warm. The problem is that her liking you is always conditional on your usefulness. And the moment you stop being useful, she reclassifies you without ceremony. She reclassified me somewhere around the time I declined to co-sign her car loan in 2017. I was 26. I had a 2-year-old and a mortgage and a job I'd held for 8 months. She called me selfish. She told Vera I had become cold. She told my brother Terrance that I thought I was better than the rest of them. Terrance. I need to tell you about Terrance. Terrance is 38. He lives 40 minutes from Vera's house and visited her, in those final 2 years, 6 times. I know this because Vera kept a calendar on her refrigerator, the kind with a square for each day, and she wrote in it every morning in blue felt tip. Who called? Who visited? What the weather was. Little records of her days. I saw it every Saturday. I never counted the visits on purpose. I counted them later. 6 visits in 2 years. I drove 41 minutes, both ways, every single Saturday. Terrance would call sometimes. He would call and tell Vera about whatever job he was about to start or had just left. About the girlfriend he had now. About the plans he was making. Vera was a good listener. She would make small sounds of affirmation into the phone, while she watched the bird feeder out her kitchen window. She had 3 cardinals that came regularly. 1 pair and a young male who ate quickly like he was embarrassed to be there. She named them. She called the young one Harold. There was also Gerald. Gerald was my mother Diane's boyfriend of 4 years. A man with the handshake of someone who wants you to know they've done something physical with their life. He came to Vera's house twice that I can document. Once for Christmas in 2022, and once the previous August when he drove Diane out. There and sat in the living room looking at his phone for 2 hours while my mother rifled through Vera's kitchen cupboards asking what she was going to do with all this stuff eventually. Vera said, "Use it." Diane, "I'm going to use it." My mother made a sound like that was a charming but diluted position. Gerald had opinions about Vera's house. He thought the property could be developed. He said this out loud, in Vera's kitchen, while Vera was sitting right there. He said the land was underutilized. Vera looked at him for a long moment and then asked if anyone wanted more coffee. My father, Dale, lives in Knoxville with his second wife. He called Vera, his mother, approximately once a month. The calls were brief. He asked how she felt. She said fine. He said to call if she needed anything. She never called. He took this as evidence that she didn't need anything. That is the family I come from. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking you to understand the geography. Let me tell you what I actually did on those Saturdays. Because the story that gets told about women like me, the ones who show up, the ones who stay, is that we are saints or martyrs or people with nothing better to do. I want to push back on that. I went because I liked her. I went because she was good company. I went because she made me feel like the version of myself I was trying to be, and I didn't have many people who did that. But I also drove to the pharmacy once a month and picked up her prescriptions. I managed her insurance appeals, 3 of them, 1 denied twice, eventually approved, using the same careful documentation skills I use for title work. I found her a home health aide named Helen, who came 3 mornings a week, a woman of enormous competence and gentle humor who called Vera Miss Vera and meant it affectionately. I paid the first 2 months of Helen's wages before Vera's long-term care insurance kicked in, and I didn't mention it. And Vera found out through the agency statement and called me on a Wednesday evening and said, "You didn't have to do that." I said, "I know." She said, "Thank you, Renata." There was a pause. Then she said, "The Cardinal was back today, the young one." And we talked about Harold for a while. I drove her to 4 medical appointments. I sat in the waiting room for 2 of them and in the exam room for 2. The ones she wanted me in, I was in. The ones she didn't, I waited and brought my work on my laptop and traced deeds backward through time while she talked to Dr. Pratt alone. I fixed her gutters in September of 2022. Not myself. I'm not a person who knows how to fix gutters, but I hired someone, got 3 quotes, chose the middle one, and managed the scheduling because she couldn't manage the scheduling anymore. I filled her bird feeder when it was low. I brought Marcus to pick blackberries in her backyard in July, and we made jam in her kitchen and she let Marcus stir, which he did very seriously. And she took a photograph of him stirring with a look of concentration that is still on my phone, and that I look at sometimes when I need to remember what good looks like. I did these things because I wanted to. I also wrote them down, not as a tally, not as a grievance in waiting. I wrote them down because I'm a title examiner and I believe in records. I believe that what happened should be provable. I keep a running document, a simple text file, time-stamped, of the practical things I do for people I love. I started it years ago for no particular reason. I'm glad I did. Deb thought this was a sign of either great wisdom or incipient paranoia, and she said she wasn't sure which. "You're basically filing receipts on your own life," she told me. We were on her porch drinking wine on a Thursday night, which is something we do once or twice a month. "Is that healthy?" "Probably not," I said. "But it's accurate," she laughed. Then she said, "You know your mother's going to be terrible when the time comes." "I know," I said. "And Terrance." "I know." "Okay," she said. "Just checking you're not surprised." She poured more wine. The porch light attracted moths. We watched them for a while. Vera died on a Thursday morning in April. Helen was with her. It was quiet, and it was the way Vera had said she wanted it. In her own bed, in her own house, with the window open because she said she wanted to hear the birds. I got the call from Helen at 8:14 in the morning. I was at my desk at work, tracing a chain of title on a property in Davidson County that had changed hands 7 times in 60 years and had a gap in 1987 that I was trying to account for. I remember the light on my desk. I remember that I had a mechanical pencil in my hand, and I set it down very carefully, like something might break if I wasn't careful. I told my supervisor I needed the day. I drove to Vera's house. I sat in her kitchen for a long time. Helen made actual coffee and sat with me until the funeral home came. And when they came, she stepped outside and I walked with them through the house. And then they left, and Helen came back in, and we washed the mugs together at the sink without talking. The family arrived in pieces over the next 3 days. My mother, Diane, arrived the afternoon of the first day with Gerald and 2 suitcases, which I registered but didn't comment on. She walked through the house slowly, touching things. She picked up a small ceramic figurine from the shelf in the hallway, a blue heron, about 4 inches tall, that had been on that shelf since I was a child, and she turned it over in her hand and looked at the bottom. "I always loved this," she said. To no one in particular, she set it back down. For now. Terrance arrived the next morning with his current girlfriend, a woman named Chelsea, who was perfectly pleasant and clearly did not know what she had walked into. Terrance made a great deal of noise about how much he was going to miss Vera, which was felt differently by different people in the room. He kept calling her Grandma V, which was not a name she had ever used and was not a name I'd ever heard him use when she was alive. My father, Dale, arrived alone. He looked older. He sat in the living room in Vera's armchair and held one of her throw pillows in his lap and looked at it for a very long time. I felt something complicated about my father in that moment. Not forgiveness, not anger, just something that recognized his smallness without hating it. On the second day, while I was in the kitchen making sandwiches for a group of Vera's neighbors who had come to pay their respects, my mother came in with the blue ceramic heron in her hand and said she thought she'd take it home. "It should probably wait for the estate process," I said. I was slicing tomatoes. I kept slicing tomatoes. "It's a figurine, Renata. It's not an estate." I looked up. "Halverson's office is handling it. They'll want an inventory." My mother put the heron in her purse. She did this in front of me, looking at me the whole time. And then she went back into the living room. I noted it in my text file.
Timestamp: April 14th, 11:42 a.m. Diane removed ceramic heron figure from shelf.
Placed in personal bag without authorization or estate clearance. I kept slicing tomatoes. The inciting wound, the thing that cracks something open, didn't come until the reading. I want you to understand the order of things, because the order matters. Halverson's office called on a Tuesday, 10 days after the funeral, and asked the family to come in on Friday at 2 o'clock. James Halverson was 63, a man of considerable patience and minimal expression, who had been Vera's attorney for over 20 years. He had kind eyes and a dark wood desk the size of a small continent, and he kept water glasses filled without being asked. We sat around his conference table. Me, my mother, and Gerald, who had not been asked but came anyway. Terrance, my father, Dale. Halverson's paralegal closed the door. Marcus was in school. I had decided not to bring him. I don't know exactly why. Something that felt like protection, though I couldn't have said what I was protecting him from. Halverson began with the house and the land. 9.2 acres in Dixon County. The house itself, 1,940 square feet, built in 1962, well maintained. The assessed value, he said, was not the operative number here. The trust-held value was different. My mother looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the table. Halverson explained that Vera had, over the course of many years, placed the property in a revocable living trust. The trust had been amended twice, most recently 14 months prior. The beneficiaries of the trust had been restructured. He said my name. He said that I was the primary beneficiary of the property trust, effective immediately. The room was quiet for a moment. Then my mother said, "That can't be right." Halverson said, "I assure you, Mrs. Malone, it is." "She would have told me," my mother said. "The document speaks for itself." Then he said there was also a financial account, a brokerage account, the kind you open with one amount and watch quietly over a long life. And he said the balance as of the date of Vera's death. He said it clearly. He said, $618,400. My mother made a sound I'd never heard from her before, a sort of contracted exhale. Gerald put his hand on her arm. My father, Dale, stared at the table. Terrance said, "Wait, she had that much and didn't help me with..." and then stopped. Halverson waited for everyone to finish. Then he said that the account was to be split. 70% to me, 15% to a local land conservancy Vera had volunteered with for 12 years, and 15% divided equally between my father and Terrance. He said there were also several specific bequests. A set of silver candlesticks to a neighbor named Ruth, a recipe box to Helen, the home health aide, a collection of first edition novels to the county library, and to me, specifically named outside the trust, the Blue Bowl. I don't know why that was the thing that made my eyes sting. The bowl had already been on my counter for 2 years. She had already given it to me. But she had named it in the will. She had sat with Halverson and said, "The Blue Bowl goes to Renata. Make sure they know." I pressed my knuckles against my mouth for a moment. Just a moment. Then my mother said, "I want to contest this." There was a detail Halverson had not yet mentioned. He got to it after my mother's announcement, calmly, the way a man who has done this work for decades gets to things calmly. He said that Vera had left letters. Personal letters, sealed in envelopes, addressed by hand, one for each of the primary family members. He slid them across the table. Mine had my name on it in Vera's handwriting. Blue felt tip, the same pen she used for the calendar. I held it in both hands. My mother opened hers immediately, standing up slightly to read it like she was reading a menu. Her face moved through several expressions. She set the letter face down on the table. Terrance read his with his lips moving slightly. He folded it and put it in his pocket. My father read his and set it very carefully back in the envelope and slid it into his jacket pocket and did not look at anyone. I did not open mine. I put it in my bag. I would read it at home, alone, at my kitchen table, with the blue bowl in front of me and a cup of decent coffee and whatever light was available. My mother looked at me. "Aren't you going to read it?" "Later," I said. "Seems like you already know what it says." I didn't answer that. There was no answer worth giving. Halverson wrapped up the formal portion of the meeting. He said his office would be in touch regarding the transfer of title and account disbursement. He said this would take several weeks. He said if there were questions, to contact him in writing. My mother stood up and said she needed a moment with Halverson alone. Her voice had gone to the particular register she uses when she's decided something. Low and very controlled, which in my mother is the most dangerous sound she makes. Halverson said his office would schedule a follow-up call if she had questions about the process. "This isn't a process question," she said. "Mrs. Malone, she was not of sound mind," Diane said. "Toward the end, you would have seen that. You should have flagged it." Halverson said, "The amendment was made 14 months ago, when your mother was assessed and found to be fully competent. There is documentation of that assessment. I want to see it. You are welcome to retain your own counsel and request it through appropriate channels." My mother looked at me. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "You did something." "I don't know what, but you did something." I picked up my bag. I said, "I drove to her house every Saturday for 6 years. I walked out. That was a Wednesday." The calls started on Thursday. My mother called 4 times between 8 and 10 in the morning. I sent all 4 to voicemail. The voicemails were long and escalating. The first was hurt. The second was aggrieved. The third was threatening in a vague way. She would get a lawyer. She would show what I had done. She would tell people. The fourth was crying. Terrance texted. Terrance's texts were short and blunt in the way that Terrance communicates when he wants money. "Hey, can we talk?" Then "This isn't fair and you know it." Then a longer one that I won't quote fully but included the phrase "she wasn't herself" at the end. And also, improbably, "I was there for her too." I read all of them. I archived all of them. I did not respond to any of them. My father called once. I answered. He said, "Renata." I said, "Dad." Long pause. He said, "I don't know what to say." I said, "You don't have to say anything." Another pause. He said, "She loved you." I said, "I know." He said, "I'm not going to contest anything." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm sorry it took me this long to call." I said, "I know." And then we sat on the phone in silence for a little while, the way you can with someone when the silence isn't comfortable but it's honest. Then came the Saturday, 3 weeks after the reading. I was home. Marcus was in the backyard kicking a soccer ball against the fence. I was at the kitchen table with a binder, color-coded tabs, green for the property documents, orange for the financial account paperwork, red for anything relating to the potential contest, going through what Halverson's office had sent me. A CPA named David Chen had been recommended to me by Halverson's paralegal. David was 37, meticulous, slightly nervous in a way that seemed professional rather than personal, and he had already reviewed the brokerage account documents and confirmed that the account was funded from a combination of Vera's late husband's life insurance, her own teacher's pension, and 40 years of very conservative investment choices, a portfolio built with patience and zero drama, the way Vera did everything. David had also quietly flagged something. He mentioned it when we were wrapping up the first call. He said, "I noticed the property tax records. The assessment for this land type in this county. Your grandmother's parcel is adjacent to a county road expansion corridor. Depending on timing, you may receive an approach from the county or from a private developer within the next 18 months. I wrote it down. I filed it in the binder under a new tab. So, the Saturday, I was at the table with my binder when the knock came at my door. I knew before I opened it was Terrance, and my mother, and Gerald, who had the decency to stay a few steps back on the walk. "We need to talk," my mother said. "You should have called," I said. "You're not answering calls." Marcus came around the side of the house with his soccer ball under his arm. He saw his grandmother. He looked at me with the particular care of a 7-year-old who has learned to read rooms. "Hey, bud," I said. "Why don't you go inside and get a snack?" He started toward the door. My mother said, "Marcus, come say hi." He stopped. He looked at her. He looked at me. "Come say hi," she said again. He walked over. He said, "Hi, Grandma Diane." She hugged him. Then she said, loud enough for Terrance to hear, loud enough that it was meant to be heard, while she still had her arms around my son. "We're trying to get your mom to do the right thing for her family. You want your mom to do right by her family, don't you?" I felt it go through me like cold water. Marcus said nothing. He's smart. He went still in the way he does when he's deciding something. She let go of him. She was looking at me. I said, "Marcus, go inside." He went inside. I said, "Don't do that again." Don't, I said. "Don't use him. Don't put him in the middle of this. He's 7 years old. I watched you do it, I said. So did he, my mother made the face. The face that is hurt on the surface and something harder underneath. I'm not going to be spoken to like this. I said, I'm not going to have a conversation on my porch. You're welcome to have your attorney contact Halverson. That's what I have to say, Terrance said. This is why. And I looked at him and he stopped. I went inside. I closed the door. I locked it. Marcus was standing in the kitchen with a granola bar watching me. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, I said. Was that bad? I thought about it. Yes, I said. But it's going to be okay. He looked at the door. He looked at me. He said, She's not very nice to you. I sat down at the kitchen table. He came and sat next to me. I put my arm around him and he leaned in. No, I said. She's not. We sat like that for a while. My mother retained a lawyer. His name was Carson Briggs, and he was, according to Deb, who looked him up, the kind of attorney who advertises on bus stops. He sent a letter to Halverson claiming that Vera had exhibited signs of diminished capacity at the time of the trust amendment and requesting records. Halverson forwarded it to me. He attached a note. This is routine. They will not find what they're looking for. The records he was referring to included, but were not limited to, a cognitive assessment administered by a neuropsychologist named Dr. Faulkner 14 months before Vera died, requested by Halverson as a standard precaution at the time of the trust amendment, in which Vera scored in the 94th percentile for her age cohort on measures of executive function, memory, and decision-making capacity. Dr. Faulkner had written in her report, with a kind of dry precision I admired, Mrs. Vera K. Odom presents as a clear-minded, articulate, and remarkably self-aware individual who demonstrates excellent understanding of her assets, her relationships, and her intentions. Vera had known. She had walked in and taken the test and done it knowing what came after. She had not told me about it. She had just done it. I sat with that for a long time. There was also the testimony of Helen, the home health aide, who had been present 3 mornings a week for the final 22 months of Vera's life. Helen was a woman of enormous composure who, when contacted by my attorney, Halverson had by this point escalated from my consultation attorney to my primary one, provided a 17-page written statement of her observations of Vera's mental and physical state during that period. The statement was detailed, dated, and unassailable. It included observations like, on Thursday, March 11th, Mrs. Odom discussed with me her decision to restructure her trust. She explained her reasoning clearly and completely. She expressed that she felt at peace with her choices. She then asked me if I wanted to hear about the cardinal. 17 pages of Helen noticing things. I thought about that. The weight of someone paying attention. Halverson also had the letter, the one in the envelope with my name on it. I had read it. Alone, at my kitchen table, with the blue bowl in front of me, the night after the reading. I had read it twice. The second time I sat very still for a long time afterward. Then I took a photograph of it with my phone, sent it to Halverson per his instructions, and put the original in the binder under a new tab. I won't read all of it to you here. Some of it is mine, but I will tell you this. Vera wrote, "The Saturdays mattered. More than you know. More than I told you. I'm telling you now." She wrote, "The house and the land should go to someone who will take care of them. You have always taken care of things. This seemed obvious to me," she wrote. "I know your mother will be angry. I know your brother will say things. Let the papers do the talking, Renata. You don't have to say a word. Let the papers do the talking." I had spent my entire professional life understanding that instruction. I had spent my entire adult life in a family that did not. The contest filed by Carson Briggs on behalf of my mother was a claim of undue influence, paired with a claim of diminished capacity. Both claims were weak. I knew they were weak because I had read enough documents in my professional life to know what weakness looks like. It looks like assertion without evidence, like claims that require you to believe the most dramatic interpretation of events. Here is what the filing had to establish: that Vera had been manipulated, that her judgment had been compromised, and that the resulting document did not reflect her actual wishes. Here is what the evidence showed. A woman who was cognitively intact, who had planned the change 14 months before her death, who had consulted her attorney and submitted to a neuropsychological evaluation, who had written personal letters that she filed with her estate documents, who had a home health aide with 17 pages of clear-eyed contemporaneous notes, a woman who had named specific items for specific people, who had remembered the recipe box for Helen, and the silver candlesticks for Ruth, and the first edition novels for the library, and the blue bowl for me. Not diminished. Not manipulated, precise. The interesting thing about undue influence claims, Halverson told me over the phone one Tuesday morning, is that they require evidence of pressure or coercion. The absence of a relationship isn't the same as the presence of influence. If your relatives are arguing that you took advantage of a close relationship with your grandmother, they're simultaneously admitting that they didn't have one. I wrote that down. I thought about it for days. The case took 11 weeks. No cameras, just paperwork. The probate court reviewed the documents, the trust amendment, the cognitive assessment, Helen's statement, the letters, and issued a ruling that was, in its own procedural way, a kind of poetry. It upheld the trust as written. It dismissed the claims of diminished capacity and undue influence. It noted in the measured language of court documents that the evidence of the deceased's intent was extensive, contemporaneous, and consistent. Extensive, contemporaneous, consistent. Those were Vera's words too, really. That was who she was. Carson Briggs sent a letter to Halverson suggesting an appeal. Halverson sent back a response that I gather was polite in the way that very confident attorneys are polite, meaning it acknowledged the inquiry and offered nothing. The appeal was not filed. 3 weeks after the ruling, the title to the property transferred into my name. I was at my desk when Halverson's paralegal called. I was tracing a chain of title in Wilson County with a mechanical pencil. I set the pencil down carefully, the same way I had when Helen called, because some pieces of news require that kind of deliberate stillness. The recording has gone through, the paralegal said. You're on title. Thank you, I said. Congratulations. A pause. She would be pleased. I held the phone for a moment after the call ended. Outside my office window, the parking lot shimmered in May heat. Someone's car alarm was going off 2 blocks over. Ordinary life, doing what it does. I picked up my pencil. I went back to work. I want to talk about the money, because I think it's important to be honest about it and not wrap it in the kind of vagueness that makes money into something mystical, or dirty or transformative in ways it isn't. 70% of 618,400 is 432,080, that number. Let me tell you what it meant. It meant Marcus's college fund, fully funded, in a 529 account I opened the same week the disbursement cleared. It meant the mortgage on my house paid off. My mortgage payment had been $847 a month. I had been making that payment for 4 years and I had never been late. $847 a month. I sat with the mortgage statement after I made the final payment, and I looked at it for a long time. Then I filed it. It meant I could repair the dent in the Civic, not the memory of the dent, which stays, but the dent itself, if I wanted to. I haven't decided yet. It meant I could take the position at the smaller firm I'd been offered in Asheville, the one I'd turned down because the salary was lower and I needed the gap covered. The salary gap was no longer something I needed covered. David Chen, who had by this point become my trusted CPA and something close to an advisor, reviewed my full financial situation and said, with the quiet satisfaction of a man who likes numbers to tell clean stories, "You're in a very good position." Then he said, "What do you want to do with the land?" The land, 9.2 acres. A 1,840 square foot house in Dixon County. Vera's garden, which Helen had kept watered and somewhat tended in the months between the death and the title transfer. I had driven out there on a Saturday, the first Saturday after the title transferred, which felt significant without my having planned it that way. And I had walked around the property, with my shoes getting wet from the morning dew, and I had stood at the back fence and looked at the blackberry canes that Marcus and Vera and I had stood next to in July of 2022, his hands purple, her hands patient. David had mentioned the county road expansion corridor. I had filed that tab in my binder. The county had, in fact, made an approach, a letter, formal and neutral, about potential acquisition of a strip of land along the southern boundary, roughly 0.4 acres, for a road-widening project. The letter named a figure. I sat with my binder and my mechanical pencil, and I thought about what Vera would do. Then I called a land use attorney, a different one from Halverson, recommended by David, and I asked about the process. The attorney, a brisk woman named Rosario Cruz who had the manner of someone who has won by preparation rather than aggression, said the county's initial figure was below fair market. She said she could negotiate. I said, "Please do." Attorney Cruz negotiated. The final acquisition price for 0.4 acres of Dixon County land adjacent to a road expansion corridor, as negotiated by Rosario Cruz on my behalf, was $8,700.